All right, let's go now to the Firehose rapid fire news stories. Jeff Bezos just closed a $12 billion Series B at $41 billion valuation with Prometheus, his AI startup that claims AI can autonomously design and manufacture physical objects like jet engines and drug compounds.
Yeah, I think the thing that I took away here was the ambition is actually to replace large amounts of engineering work, which probably means engineers as well. We were just talking about this today in my team. It's probably not new engineers that you're going to keep around. You'll probably still keep around those senior engineers. As the guy said today, they know what good work looks like. It's a little bit of a security thing too, have a little bit of certainty, and some senior person there looking at it. The thing that was interesting though is they're going to use these systems to design physical systems like jet engines. I mean, would you trust that? Well, regulators trust that because that takes a ton of testing to get through the, I think it's FAA regulations, right?
You think so?
It's very, very difficult. It can take, 5, 6, 7 years and onwards. So how will AI play into that? I don't know. The thing that I wanted to mention with this one is, you know how we heard AI and even vibe coded stuff's gonna get rid of SaaS? Now they're taking it farther, VCs and investors. AI, no, physical AI. The moat is in physical AI. Now, what they mean by physical AI, it's very difficult to detect. And people are saying you should invest in Prometheus because it's physical AI and there's a defensive moat there. But it's still just a software.
Yeah.
But I think the software is operating on physical things is maybe the point there. But that just tells me that term is a little bit too abstract, physical AI. And then I think what we're learning as we're out there talking to customers is that it's not that software can't have stickiness. It can, but it's got to be deeply embedded in workflows, right? And I still think this is very superficial investing on behalf of people. They're underestimating channels, networks, and the stickiness of workflows. Whether that's in hardware or not, because we just talked about hardware can commoditize just as easily as software.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's a physical thing, that's nothing new. We've just talked about Rita McGrath, and since post-World War II, we know how to produce hardware things at scale.
Right.
That's commoditized, right? So those are just some thoughts I had there. And you're going to see me come back to this question of physical AI and commoditization because these headlines are all over the place.
Yeah.
On that topic.
They are. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei has just one direct report, his chief of staff. Everyone else on the executive team reports to Dario's sister, company president Daniela Amodei. Mike, what do you think about their structure?
I'm not a fan of drawing any lessons from structures like this. I know people are going to look at it and they're going to say something like, he only has one direct report. It'll be some CEO and some other corporate. We should do that.
Right.
Yeah, and then have somebody else have to deal with all my direct reports. So I don't think, and you heard Dan Thomas say this, and I write about it in my book, I don't think you can draw lessons from that particular organization because it is particular. And he may just be recognizing the fact that he's more comfortable in technical details and not commercial.
Yeah.
And so he's handing out the commercial to somebody that handles it better. Yeah, kudos to him. I just thought it was funny because he has one direct report. If you looked on his X, you know how many followers he has?
No, how many?
He has like millions of followers, of course.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people he follows?
One?
Not even the chief of staff, right? 0. Incredible. I don't know what that says about him. But
yeah, I don't know. I think this came from the Bloomberg documentary. They went into Anthropic headquarters this past week, or at least this past week, and sat down with Dario and talked about Anthropic for a long time. So I think it came from this revelation. I think you're right. There's not much we can necessarily learn from that. I think it does free him up to do the things I think he said, focus on the more technical aspects, the company heading, and general vibe of the company.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he should be doing. And also, they're very unique because all 7 of their co-founders still work there today. They have a very as we were talking earlier about centering, they've got a very strong center, it appears, and it seems to be a very powerful thing for them, and that is safe AI or transparent AI, and that's how they were founded, and they still have, because all those co-founders are still there today, and it seems to be still a prevalent thought process for them, and it seems to be very powerful because it's working really well for them. They're just skyrocketing right now.
So unless you have those 7 co-founders, don't take any lessons from this. That's my point.
Yeah, it works for them specifically, right?
It works for them specifically, yeah.
OpenAI is backing Poetic, a startup that turns plain language instructions into custom enterprise software, rather than chasing unreliable AI agents. It writes deterministic code that does the work predictably.
I thought software was dead. Right? Isn't that what we just heard? Yeah. And now we have purpose-built software that OpenAI is investing in. The company is building its own programming language to automate processes deterministically. If you don't know what deterministic means, it means if you have an input X, you always get output Y by law.
Yeah.
That's what that means. So obviously in safety-oriented processes and other automated processes in production, you must get Y every time you put in X, right? And so that's what they mean by deterministic. And what they're telling you is you can't trust the base stochastic LLMs to do that. That's what they're telling you. We had to build an entire system around it. Jason, we know that well.
Yep.
For what we're building, you have to engineer around hallucinations, around sycophancy. And in this case, ours is a more speculative craft strategy. This is automated production processes potentially. You can't speculate.
Yeah. It's interesting. The interesting bit here for me was just that, OpenAI has a lot of agentic stuff built up around AI agents, and now they also have something that's built against that's anti-AI agent, essentially.
It's called hedging, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's called hedging.
Absolutely. All right. Meta is leasing a new 168 megawatt data center in India, built and run by Reliance to feed its own global AI compute needs. It's Meta's first data center in India, and it's powered by renewable energy and desalinated seawater.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing here was a lot of the business that they're aiming this at, this agent, is through WhatsApp. And that is true in that part of the world, because I used to live in Singapore. Mm-hmm. They run so much of their business through WhatsApp. It's incredible. Like just talking to sales agents or customer agents, it's all through WhatsApp. So that started to make sense to me, what's going on there. But again, this is the refrain of the show. This is a rush into workflows, customer experience, competitive intelligence, etc., with agents, right? Yeah. So it's just not the case, and I keep hearing this over and over and over, and if you can't hear it, I'm annoyed by it. It's not the case that general reasoning models are going to dominate workflows. That's why you need agents in the first place.
Right.
That's what they're being built for.
I'm looking for, I think I cut it from I didn't make it into the show, but there was another company that's also now moving into India at the same time Meta is. And it just seems like everything's happening at the same time where all these different companies are, we should be making big plays into India right now with AI. But I mean, that goes hand in hand with everything we've been seeing through this whole process, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's look at Waymo now, who launched a paid subscription called Waymo Premier. It's charging riders $29.99 a month for 10% cash back on rides, plus priority pickups and free cancellations. Mike, do you think they're going to have success with the subscription model?
Is this the Amazon Prime of automated driving or robotaxis?
Yeah.
So what it looks like is you still have to pay for the thing, right? But you have to pay for extra benefits like not waiting in lines and stuff like that. I guess my question is, will corporates pay? And my friend and I talk about this a lot. A lot of loyalty programs are propped up, particularly in rental cars and airlines, by execs that are using company cash to build their own personal status. So if you want your loyalty program to succeed, target the corporate execs.
I mean,
it's one of those principal agent problems where like you can benefit at the company's expense. But
yeah, that's also an interesting take with the 10% cash back feature, because that's something that you can put on your company card and it's your account, and then you get 10% cash back. So that seems pretty rampant for abuse right there. But we'll see how it goes. The thing about it, it's only within certain markets. I think it's only within San Francisco. I can't remember the others, but it's only in a few markets right now. And it's
where Uber is not, is essentially what I read.
Yeah. Yeah. The ones where they're embedded into Uber, like Austin, for example, those aren't the markets it's launching in. Adobe CFO departed for Marvell Technology, sending Adobe shares down more than 5% on Friday. Marvell, if you're not aware, is a semiconductor. I would call them a designer because they're not actually fabbing the stuff themselves. They're doing the design and having them fabbed at TSMC, for instance.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The article mentions that they're in a freemium model. They're pushing freemium, but they've always been freemium.
Adobe?
Yeah. Because you could, freemium in the sense you get the basic PDF skills, right?
Yeah.
For free.
Sure.
And then they upsell you to, if you want to do art or digital design, whatever.
Yeah.
And you could obviously enter those directly with subscriptions too, right? I mean, my wife had done that in the past. That's a difficult business, but the fact that they're going to push it more means it may be that their strategic moat, the strategic defensibility, the value proposition is getting more and more difficult to defend. And with AI, with the visualizations, the PDF capabilities, design capabilities, what's left for them? That's an example where their moat may be disintegrating.
Yeah. I use Adobe Premiere. I use Adobe Premiere to edit this show. It used to be better. I don't know how else to say it. Like, they've added new features that just don't always work, and it's really frustrating. And there's a lot of stuff that should be there that's not there. And I've not used another product to know if it's better or worse, but not really happy with the amount of work that's been put in Premiere itself. And I don't know. They used to have, you would pay $700 for Adobe for Premiere or Photoshop, whatever, and you would do that once every 6-7 years, probably, depending on your business. And now it is subscription, and you're paying, I pay $30 a month for Premiere, and you do that per app. I mean, they give you a little bit of a break if you buy more, but it's still a very expensive thing. I don't know. It's just a weird, I don't like their model. For me, I would much rather just do a one-time, hey, here's $300. I'm going to keep this for the next 5 years and whatever. Yeah. That'd be my preference, but it works for them. It makes their revenue a lot more predictable, obviously. So good for them. The through line that I saw here, which is backwards of what we were talking about earlier, is that man is leaving a software company for a hardware company that's focusing on AI chip production, essentially. So
again, which way to run?
Exactly. We don't really know. We don't know.
Or software.
Yeah. The private equity thing is largely because their money's tied up in software companies, and software companies are going down largely, or they have been. So now if they go back up again, maybe the private equity
to be clear, in the stock market they're going down. That doesn't mean their business is failing.
Correct.
Not yet.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
A lot of that's hype, just the wrong direction.
But it causes run on big scenarios, is my point. Yep. Okay.
That's right.
Hackers exploited a critical Oracle vulnerability in its software, PeopleSoft, to breach over 100 organizations, stealing hundreds of thousands of student records. The group ShinyHunters has claimed the hack.
Guess they didn't have enough time with Fable and Mythos, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would have caught this. I think the important thing here was a zero-day exploit, which actually was what they were advertising Mythos to help out with.
Yep.
So, 0-day means simply that you have no time to respond once it's discovered.
Yep, exactly.
On the same day. So, yeah, I don't know. I think the capabilities of cybersecurity threats of the hackers is just going to get stronger.
Yeah. I found it
an opportunity for cybersecurity businesses, I guess, right?
Yeah. Well, what I read is they specifically targeted universities because universities had a specific, this PeopleSoft, which also ran into older type of softwares that, butted up against other old software. And so it was vulnerable specifically. And so that's why they made that play. Just as
what do you know? Universities are behind the times. That's where we go to
always
move the world forward.
Yep.
Yes.
Exactly. All right, let's talk about a couple of robotic startups here. German humanoid robotics company Neura Robotics closed a record $1.4 billion Series C backed by Nvidia, Amazon, Qualcomm, and Bosch, targeting the production of millions of robots by 2030 via a shared AI ecosystem called Neuraverse.
Yes. that 1.4 billion looks really small now, doesn't it? After all the big numbers we've been throwing out.
Right? Yeah.
This is physical AI. This is probably the actual physical AI because we're talking about German robotics, humanoids. I'm going to bring you back to the topic of Europe, what's going on there, industrial costs. It's an industrial heartland, right? Particularly Germany. But their energy costs, their labor costs are out of control. Regulations are difficult. And so we've already seen many pilots of humanoids in the German context. I think we had Siemens, and we've seen some others there as well. Yeah. So they clearly have a market right there at their home. And Germans, in general, the German economy is really good at robotics and hardware.
Yeah.
Like, if you want the top of the line where you might have a moat for at least a few years, go to the Germans.
I agree. Let's talk about another one. Robotics startup Thacker has raised an even smaller $85 million. It's still a really big number. To build a factory robot that doesn't specialize in any specific task. Instead, it's designed to be reprogrammable across multiple manufacturing jobs. I think that's a great idea.
I did too. So the reason it's a great idea is because you would think you don't want to sell a robot like this because you want one that just hops out of the package and does what it does. Yep. Right into the factory. Problem. Not all factory processes look the same. Even in the same company, you can establish a global factory process. On day one, everybody's adhering. On day two, you already have deviations. And that's simply because of natural variations in production, errors that arise. So it would make a hell of a lot of sense to have a robot that your own engineers could then program for your particular processes.
Absolutely.
So that makes all kinds of sense to me. I don't know what the one above was, if it's like a general purpose one or specifically aimed at like we saw one earlier, it was just piece picking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very
right?
specialized.
Is it specialized? Yeah. That's also not a bad idea. But piece picking will run into different piece picking processes. So I think you're going to see some interesting things here. I know companies like Siemens are good at this kind of thing, like the programming, edge devices, et cetera, of these sorts of generalized robots.
Yeah. This also takes a lot of networking to make all this happen because everything needs to be connected, talk to Wi-Fi or hooked up directly to Ethernet, whatever. Very interesting. Let's move now to Goldman Sachs, who had a trading desk note this week, which argued that as token costs collapse and open source models close the gap to the large language frontier models, that investors need to start treating compute like a commodity, not a defensive moat.
We just talked about that.
Yeah.
So is it physical AI or is it SaaS? What are we supposed to do with all this information? I think they're correct, by the way, that hardware, you talked about it, it's happened over time, Moore's law, et cetera, right? It does get commoditized over time. So you got to be like Nvidia finding new moats all the time, right?
Yep.
The next thing, the next big thing.
Which is what Rita preaches as well, is it's dynamic, keeps changing.
It's dynamic, it keeps changing, and the value is shifting into things you can't necessarily value, those workflows, right? Intangible assets.
Yeah. That
was really the crux of her article as well. What I found more interesting is what happens, and we talked about this on an earlier show, if open source models keep getting better. That would directly impact the valuations of Anthropic and OpenAI. Why would I want to go with OpenAI and Anthropic models if the local model can be just as good? And if there are privacy concerns, I know a lot of the customers we're talking to in Europe, it's problematic that you have to talk with Anthropic's API.
Yeah.
But if it were hosted on site with an open source model, even as privately trained, you have an advantage. So I think this race is way far from run. And with all the cash, we saw Mark Cuban talking about this, that they're just, well, he used a very interesting, colorful term, that they're spitting out there, replace the P. With all the cash they're spitting out into the ether, I don't know how they're ever going to earn that cash back. If, and I think Goldman's pointing to that, if token costs keep dropping, if the open models keep getting stronger, if local inference gets stronger,
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was a really good note.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we're seeing hardware prices skyrocket right now, this stuff has a lifespan. So, the B200 chip from Nvidia, the best AI chip they make, what has a lifespan of 3 years in a traditional data center. That's what it's estimated to be. That you're gonna have to replace that, and the hardware price just keeps going up and up and up. And it's not just a one-time thing. You have to replenish it or fix it if it breaks. And as that goes up, then goes the price that it costs to compute. So your compute needs to go up. And if compute is plummeting, then now you're in a situation where the capital you've spent just can never be recouped because there's just not enough. There's not enough demand anymore. I don't know. It's an interesting situation. We're going to have to see how it plays out. And I, unfortunately, think that so many companies have gone so big at the same time that it's going to be whoever is left standing at the end of the day. That's why Google is my front running pick because they have a really strong position with not just their what they have with Google search and YouTube under their belt, which is great sources of AI knowledge for training. So they have a really good portfolio and book of programs for AI to work with. They also have a ton of cash right now. I think they're one of the most cash rich companies. So is Apple. And I think those two companies right now are looking the best to win in the long run when, the chips fall where they may, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah, it's like the electric vehicle market. Just so much investment going in. There just aren't enough cars to go around.
Yeah,
so they will be losers.
Yeah, that's okay. Just make another company and have that company buy all of your electric vehicles, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that was a good fire hose. Hey! You've just watched a clip from Show Your Priors podcast. Check out our main channel for full episodes. We have a new one every Tuesday. If you liked what you saw, give us a like and subscribe. It's free for you and helps us out a ton. Did we miss something during our discussions? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next one.